Let's talk about Hell Followed With Us by Andrew Joseph White. I almost did that without looking down. Hello fellow bookters, this is Gabby, and today I have a new review for you. This time we're talking about Hell Followed With Us, and I was really excited for this one. First, what grabbed me was the cover. I mean, it is absolutely gorgeous, and just so visceral, I guess is what I would call it. And I was lucky enough to get an ARC, so I can get this review to you early. So this book is coming out on 7th of June, but like I said, got an ARC, so we're gonna talk about it early. So this book is a YA LGBTQ plus horror novel with kind of like a fantasy post-apocalyptic vibe. So I was certainly very interested, and it's by queer author. So let's start a little bit with a synopsis. So Hell Followed With Us, we follow a 16-year-old trans boy named Benji who is escaped from this like cult-like, very rigorous religious organization with his father, because he was not accepted as trans and there was like other things. So anyway, they're escaping and his father gets murdered, so Benji kind of gets rescued and taken in by this group of queer teens living in a LGBTQ plus support center. Like I said, this is apocalyptic, so in this world there was this thing called flood that was unleashed onto the world, which was basically a virus, and this virus tears people's bodies apart and makes them into these gruesome creatures called graces. And this cult that I mentioned, they actually unleashed the flood to like cleanse the world from sinners, and they have these graces which are the little minions. The soldiers are called angels, and Benji was actually infected with this strain of the virus which will turn him into this creature called the Seraph, and the Seraph is like this six-winged creature of God, I guess. So the story is basically Benji getting to terms with his transness, turning into this monster, supporting his new friends, and, you know, the world undoing itself. As per usual, no spoilers, and there will be timestamps if you want to check out certain parts, but let's get into it. So let's start with writing. This was an ARC, so the formatting of the book was really bad, but I'm gonna just, forget that. The writing itself, though, was really good. I had a good time with it. It wasn't overly purple or anything. There was so many Bible verses, but because Benji grew up in this cult and was told his whole life, about the importance of God and the scripture and all of that, it's to be understood. But if you have a thing about Bible verses, maybe stay clear from this book, because I think a third of the book is Bible verses. But the writing itself was really good. I enjoyed it. It was really fast paced. It felt like this adventure story of just go. And I think the gruesome elements, like this was a horror, like body horror gore, was written really well. So sometimes I feel like I get a bit disappointed with the horrors, but this one hit. Like this one was gruesome. So I do think that it did a really good job in that sense of portraying the gruesomeness and disgusting nature. Like sometimes I didn't even know what was happening. So I don't know. Take from that what you will, because maybe that's not good writing. But I did enjoy it, and yeah, it was a lot. Then we have plot. Like I said, really fast paced, really. I don't want to call it a fun adventure story, because it was not fun. It was very gruesome and hard and difficult. But I do think that it had quite a comprehensive story to tell, and I do like how it unfolded, although I do think that bits of me are really confused at the ending, because it's just so much happening at once. And I think if I had a complaint about this book, would be the lack of world building, or maybe not the lack of world building, but just I wish it was more. I wanted to understand more about this world, how it works. It felt like we got dropped into it and then just never really shown a map or any kind of indication of where we're going, what we're doing. So that was a little bit confusing. It just kind of felt like it wasn't a proper like post-apocalyptic or sci-fi or fantasy or anything like that, because the elements were really under-explained. Like I feel like the author did have it in their head. It's just that on the page I was confused even by the end, where I thought everything would become clear. Reading this book, there were moments where I was really confused about what the hell's happening. And it's because I enjoyed the world so much and I thought it was such an interesting angle. And yeah, it's just so interesting. And I'm sure I'm not even getting half of the things in the book because it is about a trans man's experience and trans boy's experience. And I'm sure I'm not even getting, half of it. But I guess the body horror and gruesomeness of it had something to do with, the dysphoria that someone might feel. And it did have so many interesting things to say there and parts to it. So I think it's just because I enjoyed it so much, I kind of wanted even more from it. So that's like maybe my one thing, that the world building could have been a little bit more in depth and I wanted even more from it. Characters. Okay, so of course Benji's the main character. I really, really liked him and I thought his story was just such a good look into obviously a very specific trans experience, but still there's a scene where he gets dead named and his dead name is said several times and it just cuts so deep, man. It really did. Like, I've obviously never experienced it myself, so it was really credit to the author for making it feel like a slap. I don't know. It was really, really powerful. So that was really amazing. And overall, I really liked his experience, and having his perspective was so interesting because of course every person's experience is different. So just having his and how he processed dysphoria, like the way he felt about his body versus how he felt about people perceiving his body, I thought was a very interesting part. And he's got all this cold teaching to unlearn, and that was super interesting to see and really, really comprehensive, good character. I don't understand why he needed to be 16 necessary, because it felt like everyone in the story was older than 16, but what you gonna do, you get a YA. I didn't even think this was a YA because it went quite deep and quite gruesome. And then we have the main love interest, whose name's Nick. He's a gay boy and he's autistic as well, so we got a couple of chapters from his perspective as well. Really enjoyed that. I don't know how good of a representation that is as well, because the author, as far as I know, but I'm not sure if they're autistic or not. I thought it was a unique perspective and I enjoyed having it. And the rest of the characters, I think, stood up pretty well by themselves, considering they really didn't have that huge part of the story. But this is an incredibly diverse book. You have non-binary characters, gay characters, trans characters. Like I said, there's an autistic character. Everyone's perspective and identity gets really respected. This is the first time I've ever read a book where someone had the pronoun, which was really interesting to read. So seeing just all of that diversity was really cool and I enjoyed that. And all of the cult members were very despicable, although they didn't have a huge role to play, so I don't feel like we got to know too many of them, but the ones we did were, with the short amount of time they had on the page, they were despicable. Themes, obviously, I don't think I'm getting all of them because it's quite a nuanced experience, but overall, about transness, transphobia, acceptance, blind faith, and the consequences of it. I always find these post-apocalyptic stories very interesting because they talk about, what led to the apocalyptic event, and it was just felt so sad, like we brought this onto ourselves. And I mean, we always do in these stories, but still, because they're flawed or the disease was released, and it's like a well-known knowledge that it was released by these people. So just the impact on the world. And it did feel really weird because the story, I couldn't really get a sense of how long it's exactly been. So something somewhere mentioned like 2 years, but surely not. And then the main character's been in the cult for 5 years. I don't know. I feel like maybe those themes, I wanted to know more, basically. There was the day or the event or something. There was like this thing referred to with capital letters and everything. And I'm still very murky on what it actually was. But I did try to cram all of this book into one day so that I could film this review. So maybe that's on me. But there's definitely interesting themes, interesting storytelling, and an interesting story full of diverse characters. So my overall thoughts, I did really enjoy it. I think it was well written. It was an interesting story. I loved how gruesome it was and how disgusting. I would be really curious what Own Voices reviews would have to say about this, because obviously I'm in no way qualified. These are just thoughts from my head, but I did enjoy how it was done and handled, and I think it's an interesting story. And if you actually want like something really fast-paced and action-packed at the same time, bringing you a different experience, a lesson in, learning about different types of people and experiences, and examining religion and the impact of it, check out this book. I thought it was pretty decent. I think I'm going to give it maybe 3.5 or 4 stars. I've yet to settle. I did just finish this book about an hour ago. Then I fought with my camera for about half an hour. But yeah, anyway, if you read the book, let me know what you thought, if you enjoyed it. If you want to read it now that I told you about it, please let me know. And if you enjoyed the video, if you could comment, like, and subscribe, I really, really appreciate it. It really helps me out. But that's it from me, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye!